Well, hi, and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. So last week I talked about the second farmer who was anointed by the prophet Samuel to be the next king of Israel, a boy at the time called David. Now, as David grew into a man, life wasn't always easy. I talked a little last week about his encounter with a giant called Goliath, one of the more famous stories in the Bible. Well, after that, David became very, very popular with the people in Israel. But the current king, Saul, grew very jealous of David and worried that the people would make him king instead of him. Given that God had already told Saul that through the prophet Samuel that his kingdom was going to be given to someone else, that probably really got Saul looking at everyone who was a potential rival and saw them all as threats. Anyway, David spent quite a bit of time around the royal court for several reasons. He became one of the generals in the army, and he was also able to calm King Saul down through the way that he would play music and sing. If the king was having a bad day, he would call for David to come and play for him. He was also great friends with the king's son, a man called Jonathan. But as Saul grew more jealous of David, he ended up having to escape and live in hiding. He continued to write music and write poetry and generally keep his head down. Every now and then Saul would be so worried he'd go out and try to find David to kill him and eliminate the threat that he felt he posed. What Saul never quite understood was that David wasn't a threat. Quite the opposite. On one occasion, Saul was out and happened to camp just outside a cave that David was hiding in. David crept out at night when Saul was asleep, and what did he do? Well, he used his knife to cut a piece off the side of Saul's robe that he was wearing, and he crept back into the cave. The next morning, David came out as everyone was packing up camp and shouted to Saul, "Look, I've cut a piece off your robe. If I meant you any harm, I would have killed you while you slept. Please, trust me that I don't mean you any harm." Saul left and went back to Jerusalem after apologising to David. But it didn't last long, and Saul would be back. So David had quite a few adventures before he would be king. He also kept writing those songs, many of which are there in the Bible for us to read today. One that he wrote is more than just a song. It's a prophecy about Jesus. When Jesus was crucified at Easter, he even quoted the first line of the song as he was dying. Other parts of the song talk about events both leading up to Jesus' death and events after Jesus' death, like the way the soldiers would end up dividing Jesus' clothes amongst themselves. You see, David was setting himself up well for his future life. He was getting to know God. He was in tune with God's commandments, and he was in tune with what God was saying to him. He learnt how God wanted him to live and lead the people. When the time came for him to be king, he would have everything he needed to do a good job of it. God's good like that. He gives us the things that we need to be successful at the job that he asks us to do. We won't all become kings or queens, but we can be confident that God is always there for us and will help us. The book in the Bible called Psalms puts together a lot of these songs that David wrote, along with things from other people as well. Some of them are quite well known. For anyone who remembers Boney M, one of them begins, "By the rivers of Babylon where we sat down." They can be very helpful because they give us words to help talk to God, especially when we're going through tough stuff. The bit Jesus quoted on the cross begins, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Not that God had gone anywhere, but at that moment Jesus felt so alone. Maybe some of them would be helpful for you to read. Why not look a few up? If you want any tips, do get in touch and ask. And if you need a copy of them to look at, just let us know. I can either point you at where you can find them on the internet, or if you live local to us, we can drop a copy round to you. I hope you find something encouraging this week, and I hope you find God is there for you, whatever you're going through in life at the moment. God bless you, and I'll see you next week.